Miguel, welcome to the show.
Mr. Brad, thank you so much for having me.
Hi, glad to have you here. So, you are a strength and pain management coach. What
That's
exactly
right.
does that entail?
Great question. So, specifically for those that have either injuries or ailments or limitations, and whatever that looks like, right? So, for me personally, I have lower back scoliosis. So, I work with people that have lower back scoliosis, upper back scoliosis, anything that doctors tell you that maybe you shouldn't lift any weights or maybe you shouldn't increase the intensity of your exercise. So, I work with individuals that have been told that or they're just having mental limitations thinking to themselves that maybe they can't or maybe they're not supposed to just because maybe they created that narrative for themselves. And so I work with those people specifically. I also work with people that have never lifted weights before, so I introduce weights to them. And then with pain management, whether it's stress, whether it's acute or chronic pain, due to stress or again due to injuries like I mentioned before, I teach them proper ways of movement, getting them stronger so they understand that they're not only are they capable, but that's what's going to help them push forward and continue, living um, their life essentially.
That's phenomenal. So what you're saying, of course, this isn't universal, but in a lot of cases when the doctor says to someone, "Hey, you should just stop working out. Probably shouldn't do it because you have this." You come in and you say, "Well, you probably could do some stuff. Let's work on some stuff to get you rolling so you can get that physical exercise in."
Exactly.
Right. And that's awesome because I mean, I would imagine how many people that enjoy lifting weights or doing some sort of physical exercise or haven't done any at all and they go to the doctor and they have some issue and the doctor just says, "All right, well you shouldn't do any physical exercise." And people I would imagine get really bummed out about that and then they just take that to heart and it's okay, okay. Yeah, doctor said I can't work out at all, so I'm not going to, right? And that's super cool that you do what you do because of course I can tell you're definitely not going, okay, let's first day, all right, well, let's figure out what your max bench is and let's figure out how much weight you can lift, right? It's
We're definitely not doing
slowly
that.
I would imagine it's you slowly getting them to transition into finding a routine and exercises that work for them with their unique condition or mental limitation or whatever it is.
Yeah, the goal is to build that confidence within themselves. Like, oh, I can do this, or this is wasn't my favorite line. It was like, oh, it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be.
Mm. That's a really good point right there. It's not as bad as I thought it would be. When I first started getting into the gym, I was very skinny and I was just skin and bones, skinniest you could imagine. And when I first got in, I went with my dad sometimes, maybe one of my friends, and I was pretty insecure about the way I looked, right? And what I was doing. So I would, do some tricep exercises, some bicep curls, some chest exercises, whatever we're doing. And I would look around while I'm doing the exercise, and I'd be like, all right, is anyone looking at me? Am I doing the machine right? Right? And one thing I've realized over the past few years is that 99% of the people in the gym aren't judging you, right? And in fact, if you're my advice to people now is if you're struggling with, hey, I don't know if I'm doing this exercise right, or if this is working the exact muscle group that I want it to today, if you see someone near you that looks like they got a good amount of muscle on them, they have a physique that you admire, go up to them, introduce yourself, right? I know, sometimes it takes steps because a lot of us have social anxiety right now, but if you can get out of your comfort zone and be like, hey, what's your name? Blah blah blah. Hey, I'm doing this exercise. I'm wondering if I'm doing it right. Can you just can you come look and see if I'm doing it right? And 99% of the time, they'd be more than happy to do that and help you out.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Just like you said, sometimes again we get in our own head, right? So if you're the person thinking someone's looking at me, most cases they're probably thinking the same thing. Yeah. And like you said, ask for help in anything, not just in fitness. People are willing to help.
Yeah,
They really
and
are.
that's the huge problem we run into because we live in such an individualistic culture where everyone's trying to do something for themselves and not let anyone know what they're truly feeling or what they truly believe about this. And, you know, I think about a lot how if we were able to open up a little bit more and be honest with strangers, you could say, well, the world would be a much better place and your life would be a much better place. Because, like you just said, most people are willing to help. If you ask for help, if they have the answer, they'll be more than happy to give it to you. It's easy to get to the place of, the world's just a bad place. Everyone's out to get me. And 99.9% of the time, that is quite literally never true.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
It's like
Yeah,
you might have a few bad experiences, but that doesn't entail the entire world, even though sometimes it could feel like it does.
absolutely. Just like the simple analogy of, you put your finger on the stove and you burn your finger. Now you learn not to do that ever again, right? So the instinctual thing. So sometimes even with human nature, it takes that one experience to feel like it's going to be the same every single time, right? But that's not necessarily the case. We live and learn. It's the same thing with interaction with humans. Same thing with interactions as far as certain experiences or moments. Just understand or try to understand. But I always encourage people just continue looking for that help, right? So, I mean, most recently I've had an experience where I was talking to an awesome young woman, older woman, but I always like to say young. She came in for a consultation, and she was very straightforward. And it's like, hey, listen, I've had previous experiences with other facilities and other coaches or other trainers where they promised me something and they didn't follow through, and it's happened more than once. And so, how is this any different, right? And so, for me, it's like it sucks to hear that. It really, really does, because for me, I this is very important on my end, and I take this serious. Um, we're here to help people, and so I understand sometimes you're in a position where you might make an error. It's human nature, but we have to take responsibility for what we do. And so, what I told her is the best thing I can do is give us an opportunity, and you make your decision off that one opportunity. And so it's been going great. It's going great. But that's one thing I would encourage. Again, inside of fitness, outside of fitness, we might have an experience where it might taint us, or it might make us feel jaded. But we have a long life to live, so let's continue giving people a second, third chance if possible.
Right, absolutely. And sometimes when we limit ourselves with that mindset of maybe we had one, two, or even three or more bad experiences, we kind of taint everyone or picture everyone in that industry or to be like that, or no one's going to be able to help me, right? And this, of course, isn't going to help you at all. And a funny example I heard from Chris Williamson on his podcast is he was referencing to a guy who's there's a lot of stuff going on in the dating scene nowadays, especially a lot of young guys are getting to the point where they're thinking to themselves, all women are the same, I'm never going to be able to find a good girl, etc., 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 because they had one negative experience with a toxic girl. Maybe she wasn't the best partner, bad experience, whatever, right? And
They're all
so
the same.
right. And so you take this guy who's 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 years old, whatever he is, and after his first relationship, his first experience with a girl, he says, "Oh, well, she was bad, so the rest of them must be bad too, right?" And
Yeah.
so you're just chronically putting yourself at a disservice for the rest of your life if you believe that, right? Because
Hmm.
our mind helps create our reality, and we will hinder opportunities that are right in front of us if we come from the mindset, right? You can develop that mindset about women in this case and say, I'll never be able to do this. I'll never be able to find a good partner. And then every time a girl that you encounter quite literally could be a good partner, you will push her away because you are staying in the standpoint that there's no point in trying because she's just going to do me wrong. And, we're already projecting and seeing the horrific outcomes of this mindset. And same goes with fitness and what you do is, it didn't work out with one trainer that I worked with or one guy or two people. So, none of these guys are going to be able to help me. They're all the same. And it's, sometimes it takes, unfortunately, sometimes it will take those bad experiences to then find the right person. In this case, it's you, Miguel. You're the right person.
And that's one thing that I encouraged her. I was like, the fact that you're in here trying it again, making another attempt, that means everything. And I'm always telling her, I commend you for even doing that. And so, people who are listening, whatever situation you're currently in, and you feel like that again, that one experience or that second experience, it's not going to be the same. It's just you got to keep swinging that bat.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so, I mean, how easy is it than ever to give up nowadays? Because if you give up, you can feel okay about it because everybody else is giving up too, right?
So so easy, so
It's
easy.
not it's not like, you're giving up and every single one of your friends is still going and still going. Most of your friends are giving up too. Most people are just playing it safe, playing it easy, right? And so, it's not gonna in the short term, it's not gonna feel that bad to quit and to just, do something that you might not enjoy or just give up on that thing that you're chasing or you want to accomplish. But in the long run, you're going to see the outcomes because you're going to look back and you're going to say, well, I wish I tried harder. I wish I actually accomplished this because this is something that within my soul, within my heart, I genuinely wanted to do. But, and that goes to failure really is not a bad thing. Now, you could go to the absolute extremes of things and say, and a failure could happen that ends your life or something, for example. But putting that aside, because most failures in our everyday lives are not like that, although it may seem like your world is ending if you fail at one little thing, right?
Yeah,
But the point is, I mean, like I think to myself, and I'm sure you can think to yourself too, Miguel, how many lessons do you learn each time you make a mistake or you fail at something?
plenty. I mean, that's the recipe. Failure is part of the recipe of seeing the outcome of on the other side, or AKA success, depending on how you see it or how you perceive it. But you can't move forward without failing. Like it's just inevitable. It's part of the process. It's part of the process. And so yeah, it does take some shifting mentally. It does the perspective has to be there for sure.
Yeah, and you might not even know what's truly right for you if you don't fail at all. Like if you just have a straight shot up to the top and you don't make any mistakes and nothing goes wrong, you might, and this isn't universal, but you might reach the top and be like, "Oh, this isn't even what I actually wanted." Right? But
Hmm.
if you fail a few times and then you learn to use your creative mind and figure out different ways to do this and do this, you know, you might get to the point where you feel like giving up and you probably shouldn't and you should keep going. But you also could potentially get to a point where it's like, wait a minute, I failed at this, but I don't even think this is the goal that's in my heart that I actually want to go for. Maybe it's something else, right? And so
Exactly.
you can then pursue or figure out whatever that other thing or task or goal could be. But sometimes it takes failing to realize that. And, it's, you could apply it to a relationship. Sometimes it takes a certain mistake that you made or they made for you guys to realize that you aren't meant to be together. And,
Hmm.
it's the mistakes that color our world with beauty and success. And like you're saying, to put it plainly and in the most simple terms, 99% of the time, there is no success without failure.
At all. Right? We can simplify it even with food. Like I get a kick out of whenever I hear, oh, I don't like that apple. I'm like, oh, have you tried it? No. Let's try it. And then maybe you saying you don't like it makes more sense, right? So, in any situation, just like you said, right? We go through that trial and error. Okay, now I understand. I don't like this route. I don't like this specific field. Okay, I tried it. Cool. Let's uh let's pivot.
Right. And then to your example you just gave, there's another pitfall that some of us fall in. Whereas, well, first off, we're saying, I don't even like the app when you never even tried it, or maybe you had no justification to think that, or maybe you had a friend or someone who tried the app and they're like, oh, it sucks, don't try it, right? But and then sometimes, since you already have that negative connotation in your mind of this apple, yeah, Miguel's telling me to try it, but you know, I know I'm not gonna like it. So then you might not like it. But in now this isn't universal, but there could be other cases where if you didn't go in with that mindset of okay, I know I'm not gonna like it, maybe you would have liked it.
Yeah, yeah. You just created that story or that narrative just based off your surroundings.
Right. And it's, I mean, it's so wild to me how often we do that in our everyday lives. We just make up these stories that aren't reality, but then they in turn affect our reality because we're thinking so much about them. And what we don't realize is our mind doesn't know the difference between something positive or negative, something we truly want to happen to us or we don't want to happen to us. It just takes what you feed it, your thoughts, also food, physical entities, etc., and it just multiplies that, and it just says, okay, yeah, I'm the mind, I'm powerful. Whatever you feed me, I'm gonna make more. I don't know the difference between positive and negative. Whatever you tell me, like you as your consciousness, you're the boss, and your mind listens to you. But you might sometimes think that your mind isn't listening to you and it's controlling you because so many negative things are happening to you. But what we so often don't realize is we are a factor in creating that negative reality around us, and we sometimes just have no idea that it's even happening.
100%, right? So it's like as simple as I remember growing up, I would always hear, be mindful of what you're feeding your brain, what goes through your eyes. Be mindful of what you're feeding through your mouth and what's nourishing or fueling or not nourishing your body. And as when we're young, or depending on how we actually receive that concept, it doesn't really necessarily make sense. So until we start getting older and we start realizing certain things, like okay, something I watched or something that I looked at is replaying in my mind, and then it's causing me to have, whichever sensation, fear, anxiety. Something I ate, if I want to make a change in my body, I'm so used to eating this certain way that it's negatively starting to affect my body. And it took me a while to realize that it was happening, right? So it's like paying attention. But I feel like we live in a society or an environment where it doesn't allow us to necessarily touch into our instincts and really pay attention. It's like, okay, that affected me. Maybe I should be careful about that.
Mm. Yeah, we like to acknowledge that there might be something going on and there might be something a little bit wrong, but then say, "Ah, it's fine. Nah, it's fine. Just don't worry
Brush it
about
off.
it." Right? And then there are situations where that happens and the issue or whatever it is, it'll go away. But I would argue that a lot of the times it sinks within you, and then the next time it comes up, it's worse, and you have a more negative emotional reaction or a more negative thought process, or you feel worse about yourself, and this is no way to live life, right? And it's hard. It's horrible because our society promotes distraction, and it everything around us promotes don't work on yourself, don't figure out how you're truly feeling, don't reach the best version of yourself, because that's you just don't want to do that, right? You just want to go ahead and buy this new car. It might feel you better. Go buy this $10,000 watch. It's going to make your life so much better, right? And and we believe this, and of course another reason as to why we believe it is because it's everywhere around us and everyone else is doing it too, and so we're all chasing these materialistic items in this case, and we reach the goal, or we reach the amount of money to buy the watch. We buy the watch, we buy the new pair of clothes, we buy the car, and yeah, it's nice when you first get it, and then a few days later you go, okay, well, back to my normal life now. It's like, yeah, I have the watch, it's cool, but all right, it's just a watch. And then
Just
you,
kind of empty.
yeah, the emptiness. And then this, the worst part about it is that we will reach these goals, realize that it doesn't fulfill us and it doesn't make us happy, and continue to chase goals and achieve materialistic items that we still believe are going to make us happy. And then the cycle just constantly repeats until you die of getting this next thing, and it's never actually fulfilling. And it's sad to see. They always say, I don't know who they is, but they always
what
say,
what do they
if
say,
you're
Brad?
if you're only chasing money, then you'll never be fulfilled, because money is great, right? You need money to survive and arguably to thrive in certain areas of life.
It's a tool.
But yeah, exactly. And without that tool, life would be very difficult. But if you're only chasing that tool to grant in your toolbox, but you have nothing else to apply it to, what's really the purpose of that? Like, you can make a lot of money and spend it all on materialistic items, or you can make a lot of money, spend it on a personal trainer like you, Miguel, you know, uh, pay someone as a mindset coach, maybe help you with your addictions.
Yeah, it's a tool to make
Eh,
investments to continue helping you grow as a human,
Right.
right? Versus, the saying goes, chasing money is like chasing the air. It's just another form of distraction.
Hmm.
If that's your main goal, then you're pretty much losing purpose of what we're here on Earth in the first place, right? So I truly believe that every single human being is here to serve, and that looks different for every single person. It's just a matter of you know doing the work and trying things out to find out what it is, ultimately. And so, if we're looking to serve money or materials or distractions, it's going to be empty every single time. And so then it's like a dog chasing its tail. You're just going to keep running in circles, or the hamster wheel example, right? So I know you bring out a good point. Is when you shift that mindset and um, things that bring value or as an investment, then we're on the right track of living the best life.
Right. And because all of that is investing within yourself. That's really all it is. The money is a tool to invest back into yourself to make yourself better, and then in turn you're going to be able to make other people better. And taking the $10,000 and buying the watch isn't going to be able to do that for you or for anyone else, right? And so, I'm not saying you can't ever buy a nice watch and you
Right.
can't buy your nice car, right? There's nothing wrong with that. And in fact, that can be great. But where we go wrong is we think it will fulfill us. I mean, for example, recently I've enjoyed buying some sneakers, and I realize and I know that, when I buy a new pair of sneakers, it feels nice, but, it's not going to fulfill me. And so I'm not buying any sneakers to fulfill me. I'm doing it because I enjoy them and I enjoy wearing them. I think they look cool, but I know they're not going to fulfill me. So I'm going towards actual goals in my life towards things that will fulfill me, and pursuing new knowledge every day to keep myself curious and enjoying life. And this all goes back to adding on to some of the points you were making of being grateful for what you have, because it's very difficult to be grateful for things that are going to be coming in the future if you're not grateful for what you have now.
Hmm.
Because if you're even if you don't have that much right now, you probably have something, even if it's just one thing, right? And you can be grateful for that one thing. And then once you reach that next goal, or you have that achievement, then you can feel a little bit more fulfilled and you're actually moving towards something. And but there's also this false perception that happiness lies somewhere else and not in this moment. And that's the mistake that we made. I believe it was Alex Hormozy. He said, you have already achieved goals that thought would make you happy, right? And then so you reach that next goal, all right, this is going to make me happy. Then you get to the other side of that, okay, well, I'm not happy. And then you make another goal, okay, when I reach this, I'll be happy. Then you're not happy. And then it's just like we were talking about
Reoccurring.
before, it's just a cycle. And it's like we need to open up these conversations with our friends and our partners and everybody we interact with, because people having conversations and opening up and about some of these things that you're thinking about, some people can grant you different ideas and opportunities, and just allow everything to flow better in the own textures of your mind. And going back to what I was saying before about us living in such an individualistic culture of us just, I need to do it, I don't need anyone, it's fine, I'll be a lone wolf. That's okay for a little while. When in the long term you're going to be miserable. I mean, all the guys who sacrifice all their friends, their family, their relationship partners, and they cut everyone off to go chase money and become a millionaire. I always like to use the example, okay, well, you're a millionaire now, but you have zero human connections now. You cut everyone off, you did
Who
everyone
you
wrong.
sharing that with?
Right. And so you'll feel more alone than you did when you had $0 in your bank account.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, going back to everything we've been saying as far as perception and understanding the viewpoints of how we look at things. I mean, you pursuing something you do have to make sacrifices. That's inevitable. There has to be sacrifices made. But that does not mean, with what you said about being a lone wolf, doesn't mean cutting people off and you're gonna figure this out on your own, right? Unfortunately, yeah, that's the environment that it's being preached every time through social media or through, I mean, especially after the pandemic, it's one of those things where people decided to just want to be on their own. Solitude is important. We do need that time to block off some time to read, study, or just kind of get in the fields as far as understanding what emotions are going through your current body. Yeah, that's important. But we also need the interaction of other humans, just like you said, to share ideas. We all have these emotions. We just go through them in different phases in our life. So we get the opportunity to actually vent and be vulnerable, friends, family, whoever you feel comfortable with. It's such a beautiful experience. You airing those things out, talking to someone that you trust, and them listening. It's that's part of you letting go of whatever stories you have in your mind as well. Because if we just stick to them, just like you said, with your subconscious, and with it just kind of marinating in there, and now it's a cycle, a vicious cycle. Then you find yourself 2 years, 3 years in the same spot, and you're wondering, what am I doing wrong? Right?
Yeah. No, I completely agree with that. And psychologists say that loneliness kills the brain and the body faster than any illness on the planet. And it makes sense because we all understand and know in our bodies and how we feel that we need other human beings, whether we want to be by ourselves, whether we feel as though the world is out to get us and there's no one out there for you. You still have a desire for connection and to be with a partner or to have connections with people. And if we voluntarily, that's probably because sometimes you don't volunteer to, cut everyone off or, you know, have things go bad. Like maybe you're in a really dark place and it just, you're not even aware that you're, doing people wrong or cutting them off or not talking to anyone anymore. And the arguably worse than that is you voluntarily saying, like let's say you're my brother Miguel, and I say, hey Miguel, it's been really nice knowing you my entire life, but I gotta go become a millionaire. Bye bye.
I'm
Right?
done.
And it's like it's voluntarily doing that is probably the worst thing that you could do. And that isn't to say that there aren't certain people in your life that are holding you back and are just a negative ball of energy to your life. And every time you have an interaction with you, it makes you feel worse about yourself. There are certain people in your life, going back to sacrifice, there are certain people in your life that you will have to cut off or not talk to as much, right? But that doesn't mean, you know, just because you're going for a goal or you're going towards something and it doesn't really seem like anyone else in your life at the moment is on that path, doesn't mean to cut all them off. Because when I first started my self-development journey, you know, none of my friends were doing it. Nobody else in my personal life was doing it, but I didn't cut them off, right? I maybe spent a little bit less time with them than I did before to, focus on myself and get to where I wanted to be and reach my goals. But I didn't cut them off. I still hung out with them. I still talked to them and I still had a good time with them. And you need that, right? It's,
It's part of
sometimes you can
emotional
get
maturity for sure.
yeah.
Sorry. No, I was just saying, thinking out loud. That's part of emotional maturity as well,
Mm,
of understanding like, hey, those are my people. They might not be in the same path, or they're not on this current journey, but that's okay. Maybe I can be the light for them. Meanwhile, and then eventually they'll caught on. But it's not. You made a great point, because I'm personally guilty of it when I was younger too. Of okay, they're not on the same frequency. They're not, you know, following or doing what I'm doing, then maybe I should spend a lot less time, or not even tell them. And then over time, it's like, okay, that's lesson learned. Because some people that maybe I felt to this day I should have kept around and I didn't, because I chose to do what I did, right? So now it's different as I'm getting older. For me personally, I see relationships, friendships, community so much different compared to how I was when I was younger.
mm, yeah. And you brought up a really good point about being the light for them. And I would argue that that is super powerful. I mean, there were sometimes for me when I would introduce some self-improvement concepts or habits to a few of my friends, at first they'd make fun of me and they weren't onto it and they didn't want to do it. And then, 6 months, a year and a half down the line, I started to see some of them indulge in those habits and start doing them themselves, right?
Hmm.
And I would argue so much of life is about just showing people that you've made the progress and not telling them, right? Because you can go up to people and you can brag all the time. It's like, yeah, I'm doing this, I can't believe you're not doing this, you have to do it. And I'm making so much progress, I'm doing so much better than everyone else. And a lot of the times that will get people just to not really like you and not want to indulge in whatever you're talking about as well. But if you can do, and now sometimes you can have the conversation and bring up the topics in a non-bragging manner, and that it is helping. But arguably, that's what's more powerful is you just doing the work on your own time, and then people see your transformation. They see how you're acting differently. You're a more positive person. They can tell the energy that you're flowing through your body into them through conversation is just lighter and it's better. And so people will then start to ask you questions. It's like you'll naturally change. You're just being your authentic self as you're transforming in your personal life and your mind and your body. And
Mhm.
then people can pick up on that, right? And you don't have to go around and tell everyone what you're doing. You do your thing, you enjoy it. And, at a point, people will start to ask you, hey, how'd you get to this point, Brad? It's like, or Miguel, how a year ago, you were like this, and it seems like you're so much lighter now. You're glowing, man. You seems like you're just doing well. What's going on with you? And then you'll be more than happy to explain that, right? But it has to be a lot of the time, like people want to, or people need to want the answer to their problem. You can't always just give it to them because sometimes that's not exactly, well, not saying it's not what they need, but it's not what they need to get them to actually get the ball rolling and do it.
Yeah, it depends on the season, right? Whatever season they're in, that message in that moment might not resonate, but eventually it will. Um, you just, try to meet people where they're at. Sometimes certain things that you might share with them might not make sense in that moment, but I always tell people encourage just, you know, be mindful, but still say it because it will hit. Your subconscious might pick it up and you're like, okay, I remember we had that conversation and I remember, this was shared and now it makes sense. And so I always tell people don't be shy as much as you feel like sometimes you feel like you might be behind or you may feel like you might be ahead. Don't let that deter you from again being the light and helping someone. It might not again hit right there, but it will.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty easy to get caught up in your own head and become very prideful and think that you're better than other people. And in some regards or some aspects of what you're doing, you might be better than someone else at a certain task, like you've made progress in it. But the second people pick up on that's the way you're portraying it, it instantly turns them off to listening to. And they could be in conversation with you for the next hour, but their ears are closed, and you're not going to make any sort of impact. And so, you know, I mean, you could argue that there's a time and place for talking about all your accomplishments. But for the most part, what I've tried, and now, people could say, "Oh, Brad, you're contradictory. You're contradicting yourself." You talk about your accomplishments and what you've been through on your podcast all the time. Yes, I do. But the purpose of that is to show you that you can do it too, right? It's not me. I don't
You're
come
sharing
on
more
here and
so than being boastful.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've been curious. Like I try my best to never come off that way. And I've asked a few people in my personal life, hey, do I come off that way? And they're like, no, you don't at all. So you don't have to worry about it, right? And that feels good to me because I'm trying to just share the knowledge that I've been able to gain and what I believe is the truth, to help people help themselves, because that's really,
Ultimately.
that's all any of this is. And as I recently became a self-development coach, and you're a coach in your area, I'm sure you can agree. All being a coach is helping people help themselves. That's all it is.
Exactly. Exactly. That's a key point every time I have these conversations with potential clients or people I'm working with. It's like, hey, everything we're learning, everything that we're doing, right? There's more than just the movement. Movement, of course, is very important, but the educational piece. I want you to feel confident and be able to say, hey, you know what, Coach Miguel, this whatever time period we had was a great run, but I think I can do some on my own now. Great. That's what I want to hear. I want you to, no matter how long we work with each other, you have the confidence of I can continue doing this on my own. Or if I do need the help, I'm okay with asking for help. Like
Right.
this is for the long haul.
Mhm.
This is not something for a short period of time. Let's create some sustainable habits. Let's create some sustainable thought processes, right? Understanding how to build that awareness. And then from there, let's go. Like a parent sending their kids off to college. Let's go flourish.
Yeah. I mean that's so important. Such a great point that you brought up. And for my first client, I straight up said to him, I'm like, the goal, oh, and there's no set time frame on this, but the goal is to get you to self-sustain. I don't want to be working with you forever. I want to get you to the point where you can do all this stuff by yourself and you're feeling great and you're in a much better place than you were before, and you can just, get rolling, or not get rolling, but continue doing what you're doing
Yeah,
by yourself, because that's what it is. I mean, of course, some people are, oh, then you're going to lose the client and you're not going to make money anymore. And sure, you're providing a service and it allows you to grant an income. And in that case, it's money in regards, but that's not the reason you're doing it. I think anybody in any sort of coaching space that's doing it for the money is probably not going to
be here
genuinely
very
care
long.
about their clients. And yeah, and it won't even last long, because I mean, I would say in every area of life, people pick up when you're being fake and you don't know what you're talking about and you're
Absolutely,
full of shit, whatever.
absolutely. Yeah, humans are smart. Like again, if they won't see it in the moment, they will eventually, right? So
Yeah.
it's how I mean that's just thinking that alone, that of putting up an act, right? It's unfortunate because I ask myself, don't you get tired, as coaches that are doing that, putting on an act and not necessarily being authentic? That's exhausting, right? And this is not even saying living it off her experience, because I mean, even doing what we do as coaches, interacting with humans on a daily basis, that in itself is tiring. But in in a positive way, it's like, okay, I exerted all the energy that I had. All right, I'm gonna go to sleep. Let me regenerate, and let me just do it again tomorrow. Right? Versus putting up a show, putting on an act. I would only imagine that's like times 10, even more tiring.
Mm,
And then why even do that?
yeah. And and it really does. It affects, of course, your relationships with everyone else, and even more ultimately yourself. I mean, I was talking to one of my buddies, and he's a little bit younger, and he was telling me, we had this conversation probably around a year ago at this point, and he was telling me how in school he would put on this mask and try to fit in with, be who everyone else was and act that way and talk the way they did. And when he went home, the mask wouldn't fade, and so he would still act like that in his home. And then he started to experience this mental struggle of, okay, well, this isn't even who I am. It's like you're just like he for him. So like for some people, you'll go out in public and you'll put on the mask and you'll try to fit in. And then when you come home, you're like, all right, finally I can be myself. But then in his situation, he wasn't even taking off the mask, so he got so bad to the point where it's like, well, who the hell even
Who am
am
I?
I, right? And then you've just lost your identity.
That's exhausting.
Yeah,
That is
and it,
exhausting.
it, it's crazy stuff.
But yeah, man, ultimately, as coaches, we definitely want to share as much as, we put in the work, we put in the time, and we want to see our people succeed, in whatever shape or form that looks like. And ultimately, that's what it boils down to: people helping people.
Yeah, 100%. How can we embody some more stoicism in today's world? Seems like we're getting kind of soft.
Man, no, that's a great question. It. I was talking to um, Mark England from Enlifted Coaches, and he was telling me, we're doing some story work, and he was telling me he says this a lot, and it's interesting as I really kind of let it marinate. I'm like, okay, it makes sense. He said people would pay not to see who the person is in the mirror. People would pay not to dive into uncomfortable conversations, or really dive into what's bothering us, that narrative we've created that's going to help us. If we really work on that story, it's going to help us literally jump over the fence into becoming the person we really want to become, right? And he says there's a lot. People will pay not to do it. And in my mind, I'm thinking, that sucks. I I want to get in the fields. I want to feel that emotion of this hurts, but I know that this is what's going to help me get through, right? So in tapping into stoicism, first and foremost is looking in the mirror and asking yourself that question: who am I? Who do I want to become? What type of human being do I want to be in this current earth? And that takes reflection. That takes literally sitting down, thinking about it, or maybe not even sitting down. One thing that it's funny that's becoming a lost art, I encourage even my clients, go for a walk, but leave your phone behind. And even I was guilty of it going on my runs, headphones on. And so a friend of mine encouraged me, try running without headphones on, especially those long distance ones. I was like, all right, cool. Like for me, my excuse is, that right song just comes on and I get my second win and I can just run faster. But then I tried running without the headphones and I have that. That second win, that's me. I create that. And so making sure, or better said, my encouragement to who's listening and trying to tap into stoicism is listen to your internal voice. What is your voice saying to you? What are some patterns that you may not even acknowledge at the moment, but then eventually you're like, okay, why am I keep saying this to myself? Tap into that, and you're that much closer as far as stop being, stop victimizing yourself and really honing in on who you are and what it is that you're doing. Are you improving yourself or are you hurting yourself? Right? Are you being that light that we all have? We all have that light in us. We haven't tapped in because again, we're distracted, right? So eliminate distraction, tapping into that voice, looking in that mirror. Stoicism is about asking questions to yourself. There's no right or
Mhm.
wrong question. Ask yourself questions. You will come up with the answers.
Yeah. Seeking you shall find. And I've also realized that there is no your mind and your thoughts don't lie to you. And by that, I don't mean that, okay, if your mind is constantly saying to you, I'm not good enough, it could be lying about that in the sense of, you are actually good enough, right? But what I mean by your mind doesn't lie to you is your mind is never lying to you about what you're going through. If you're having the thoughts of I'm not good enough, well, your mind is telling you, hey, we're dealing with this right now. Interject, help us out. Tell us that we are good enough.
Where
Show
is
us
that
that we
coming
are.
from? Why am I saying that? Why is that reoccurring? Yeah, see, like if that's so that voice or what you just said, it's not a definite thing. It's trying to get our attention. It's like, okay, why am I saying that? Why am I feeling that way? You tap into those questions, you have those answers internally. You do. We all do.
Yeah. And and it's stoicism seems to be such a powerful tool to embody in our world today because going back to since we're so distracted all the time, if we can start to embody a more powerful spirit and developing the discipline and honing in and being honest with ourselves and accepting where we are and working from there, well, that's where the real progress comes because you can make certain progress in areas, but you can do it the wrong way. And the example I like to give of this is you can be either you feel as though you're either too skinny or you're too fat, and you say, okay, I need to start working out, I need to get in the gym because I need to build muscle or I need to lose weight. And on top of that, you say, well, I need to gain muscle and I need to lose weight because I hate myself. I hate my body. I hate the way I'm feeling. I hate everything about me, et cetera, right? And I think what a lot of people will notice when they come from this standpoint is you might get to the point of you're looking better and you're losing weight and you're gaining more muscle, but you'll still have that limiting mindset and that negative part of you. Whereas if you start from the beginning of, hey, I feel like I'm too skinny, I feel like I'm too fat, I'm accepting that I feel that way, but I know this doesn't have to be a permanent feeling. And you make the mindset shift of, okay, instead of me wanting to go to the gym because I hate myself, what if I go to the gym because I love myself and I want nothing but the best for my mind and my body? And then you can arguably make even more progress in losing weight and gaining the muscle. Plus, when you actually reach the goal, you will be more fulfilled rather than I hate myself because the hate myself aspect usually is even more deeper than just the surface level of the way you look on the outside. There's other stuff going on there too.
Exactly. Boils down to language, right? Versus the I am versus I feel. That you shifting those words specifically will even you can even feel the difference in your body when you say it like that, right? It's because it's not definite. And when you choose those words and make it definite, that's where it hurts more. So no, you're not this, you're not that. You're currently feeling those things, and that's okay. But what are the steps that we're taking to not feel those anymore?
Right. That's and that's the perfect way that is required for us to go about it in order for us to reach the best version of ourselves, whatever that looks like for us. Because there's no one size fits all for, okay, once you've reached this, you've accomplished this goal, you feel this way, you're the best version of yourself. It's different for everyone because we all have different goals, we all have different passions, we all have different feelings that evoke within us with when different situations and circumstances occur, etc., etc. Do you do you feel as though you live an unorthodox lifestyle?
100%.
How
Yeah.
so?
I mean, the based off my environment, especially in the first jobs that I was working, and then I'm first generation. I have immigrant parents, and so um, they were the first example of hard work. And so, my mom's been working 9 to 5 since she was 18. My dad, he's followed his passions and he does construction, and so, but it's still a 9 to 5. And so to them, it's I got to work to provide. And that's the mindset because I mean they had me at a young age, and so witnessing that and seeing that, um, I knew that we had to work. Number one, but two, I also knew that we had this opportunity to choose what type of work you want to do, and that might require doing things differently. So the current lifestyle that I have that pinpoints or defines it as unorthodox is the fact that not only can I work from in person, but I can work online as well. And then my hours are different. I mean, I can work 4 hours in the morning and then have the rest of the day off. Or I can work 4 hours in the morning, have the middle of the day off, and then choose to work in the evenings. And so that time frame or that flexibility allows me to continue to do things that help me service my people. And so, um, yeah, I mean, because I'm not your typical personal trainer. I don't work at a 24-hour fitness. I don't work at Equinox. I don't work at commercial gyms. I was very fortunate that I started my fitness world at a CrossFit gym, and so even their model and their style is pretty unorthodox, and it's very different. And so, um, I took a different route. I know most people typically do the school, do the studying, and then eventually, they put in the action of what they've learned. I was fortunate enough that I was able to trial and error, put in the action while I was studying. So putting in the time, so learning as I was going and actually doing it. And so I feel like that sometimes puts me in a different space too when people are asking me questions. How did you get here? How did you do that? I was just very fortunate. I I saw what I liked. I know I wanted to be around it. And so I did whatever I can to be around what I wanted to be and what I wanted to do. And so that put me ahead. So instead of being sometimes, paralysis by analysis, some people I've learned are really great professional students. They can read a book from beginning to end. I like to read, but not to that extent. Of course, I have to read so that I can continue improving my skill sets, but I don't have to. I get to. Let me rephrase that. But I did it in a different way. Like I put in the action and I put in the work, so that allowed me to push forward a little more or a little faster than the norm. Um, and I mean, the way I eat, the way I decide to do certain hobbies, um, because of the flexibility I created with myself, it's very, very different. While people, at their cubicles 9 to 5, I'm probably out in nature. So long-winded answer, but that's how my lifestyle is. It's
Yeah,
not your
no, that
normal lifestyle.
well, that's awesome, and I would say I'm on the same mindset as you in terms of the way I learn. I mean, it's so much easier for me to learn something, put it into practice, action, learn from it, maybe fail a few times, learn the lessons, go through it, blah blah blah, etc. etc. I mean, always for school with me is, you know, some classes will build on each other. So it's like, let's say you have to do math, and then in order for to do this math class in 2 years, you're gonna have to know the math from here. And I'm not very good at learning something, taking the summer off, not to taking class for it next year, and then going back into it. I forget all of it, right?
Hmm.
Because my mind seems to work as when I learn information, I have to think about it and actually put it into practice and have it serve me and other people for it to remain in my mind. And for me personally, learning how to do a math equation doesn't apply to my life at all. So my mind forgets about it because it's not serving me in the way I'm living my life, right? And so that's what has made school very difficult for me. But of course, like you said, everybody has their different learning styles. Some people are fucking amazing at reading through the book the entirety of the way through, taking some notes, and they can tell you about the entire thing, remember all of it a year
Hmm.
later, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, my mind just doesn't always work that way. And, that just goes down to accepting that we all have different learning styles and we
Correct.
learn things differently and we put things into practice differently. And to support each person in their creative way of doing it, right? And not, I never really, I don't like the one size fits all persona of any area of life of, okay, you have to
Correct.
do it this way because most of the time in life, you could say there isn't one way to do thing. There isn't one way to do a certain task or a certain thing. You can think about a bunch of creative ways and do it in a different way than John did it or anyone else, right?
Absolutely.
And
Yeah, well, I mean, going back to the light, going back to the power that we all have within us, we're all unique, right? And um, however you may receive that, but we are different on purpose. Nothing is created the same. Nothing. You look at nature, you look at humans. We stand out on purpose, right? And so, with that same perspective, with when it comes to ideas or when it comes to doing I mean, I was guilty of like certain things, especially in the fitness field. It's easy to be like, oh, it's saturated, or there's already people doing this and doing that. And that's the wrong way of thinking. It's more so I bring to the table something different. He or she brings to the table something different. Ultimately, we're here for one reason. Not only are we passionate, we love this stuff, but we're also helping. Again, I can reiterate that a million times, helping people, but we all do it in a different way. So the way I coach might resonate with somebody, and maybe the way I coach does not resonate with somebody. So I always tell people, listen, if I'm not the right fit, thankfully I have this awesome network of other coaches and trainers that I can, have them go their way. But at the end of the day, it's not about like what's hoarding or these are all my clients and no one else can touch them.
mhm,
No, 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 no. If I can't service you, if I can't help you no more or can't help you at all, let's go find you someone that can.
right, yeah,
Yeah.
and that's a really good point. I mean, it's like I was talking to a few people that I'm in connection with that are, they're older than me and they're doing something like life coaching. And I'm thinking to myself, hey, and I was talking about it with one of them. And it's like, all right, well, let's say someone comes to me and I'm a young guy, I'm 20 years old. And maybe someone comes to me and they're a prospect or someone that could be working with me. And they're like, Brad, you're just too young. I feel like you don't have the experience, whatever. Right. And I'm like, you know what? That's okay. Chris, Bill, et cetera, they're 30 years older than me. Maybe they can help you out, right? And maybe
Hmm.
they'll be able to offer you what, maybe I can or can't. And maybe I can offer it to you. You just don't believe it, but that's fine too, right? It's whatever works for you because the energy that goes into everything and just how the person feels will determine everything. Because it's like you could be the best fit for that person, or maybe they would make more progress if they worked with someone else. And I think the true test of you knowing if you're coaching to actually help someone is being able to do that letting go and accept that somebody else might be able to do it better than you or help or just help cater to their abilities better than you have. I mean, maybe
Hmm.
someone just they have a situation that they're going through or their entire bubble of what their life circumstances are. and it's like, hey, Bill has been through this, and I haven't. Like, I can grant information and some knowledge on it, but I haven't been through it. But Bill has, so maybe he can help you out better. And that's a beautiful point that you made up. I really agree with that.
Yeah, man. We're team effort.
Miguel,
Yes, sir.
appreciate you coming on today. It's been a fucking
Like
great conversation.
likewise, man. I'm glad we were able to do this. I know we had another time frame, but things happen for a reason. We're here now, and I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Where can people check out your coaching, your services, your social media, etc.?
Yeah, you can keep it real simple. Just on Instagram, it's underscore Miguel Angel Sanchez, which is my full government name. Underscore Miguel Angel Sanchez.
Beautiful. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks for
Yes,
tuning
sir.
in.
Thank you.